Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. As many of us explore life, we try to find the easiest path to bring us all that we desire. Many times we spend most of our lives just trying to discover who we truly are and what our true calling is. What if there was a system that started on the day that you were born that could actually show you a map with each year of your life, bringing you meaning and message that can help you ride the waves instead of fight the current? Well, this wouldn't be a Western or Eastern astrology that we would be talking about, but simply a map that the Chinese medicine developed of the human system, but not for physical health issues. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is author of The Wisdom of Your Face, The Wisdom of Your Child's Face, and Your Hidden Symmetry. We're going to learn about compassionate and affirming ways for us to understand what our true nature is and to feel love for everyone in our lives, including that reflection in the mirror known as you. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Jean Hanner. Jean,
Hey.
Welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Now, how did you get started with all this? This is quite interesting because you would think that, with the birthday, people are going to assume, oh, this is an astrological reading, I'm a dragon, I'm a Pisces, all that sort of a thing, but this is much different.
It is very different, yeah. And, if anybody has visited my website or seen my picture, I am not Chinese. And so it's even less likely that I would end up doing this. This is actually an ancient Chinese system that I discovered because I married into a Chinese family when I was in my 20s, and my mother-in-law knew this and started to teach it to me. I was very skeptical at first. I thought it was just superstition. But actually, it's a science. It's based on the principles of Chinese medicine, as you said. And Chinese medicine is thousands of years old. What it really did over the centuries was develop a very sophisticated map of the human system, not only physically, but also on a spirit level. So a lot of people call my work acupuncture for the spirit because it's not looking at your physical health, the design of your body, but more the design of your personality and how you're moving through life, what you came here to learn, what your real purpose is. So many layers of messages here that we can read in the patterns of your birth date and of your face.
Now, it's really interesting. I remember years ago as I was a teenager watching one of them variety shows during prime time, and they were showing that their faces were actually of different proportions, and so what they would do is they would put half of a face against the mirror to show you,
yeah.
that, your face didn't have exact symmetry, that it was just a little bit off. One side was rounder and one side was longer than the other, and that would kind of give you your looks. But what we're talking about here is much deeper than that.
It is, yeah, and it is true that nobody's face is perfectly symmetrical, that your left side and your right side are different, and there's actually meanings to that we can read in people's faces. In face reading, we read the size and the shape of the features, any wrinkles that develop, and by the way, many wrinkles are very good things. There are certain wrinkles you're supposed to get, so I'm kind of on a campaign to help people feel better about their wrinkles.
Really, I think that would be a good idea with all the sandpapering people do. It's like, boy, you're just kind of rubbing away the personality that you've gained over the years.
Well, the concept is that you have the face that you have for a reason, and not in a bad way. What face reading shows you is that there's many wonderful, positive, affirming messages in the features and even the wrinkles in your face. It shows wisdom gained, lessons learned, and specifics, not just, oh, she has a wise face because she's been through a lot. It gives you a lot more information than that. So, yes, you can compare left and right sides of faces. You can compare size and shapes of eyes and nose, and it tells you a lot about how someone tends to think and feel and behave and what they need to be happy in life.
Now, my understanding about this, too, is that you can reveal the hidden symmetry. Listen to this, Beyond 50, we're on our way. By just having a birth date, so do you actually have to see the person to do, I guess, a reading, if that's what you call this?
Yeah, that's what's so great about this system is that you can do either or both. So there are patterns in your face that tell me about who you are, but there are also patterns in your birthday because energy moves through time in certain ways and certain patterns as well. And so it's almost as if on the day you were born, you were imprinted by the patterns that existed at that time. and that had a huge influence on your inner makeup, your inner design. So when I do readings for people, I look at both usually. They email me a photo of their face and tell me their birthday, and then we talk on the phone and I give them readings. But even if you just know someone's birthday, there's an amazing amount of information that you can tell about someone.
Now, give us an idea when you do a reading. How do you start? What is it that you look for?
Oh, what a good question. Well, it kind of depends. There's many ways to do this, and I actually train people to do this because, all of us live or work with human beings. There's all kinds of information in the faces and the birth dates around us. But if you're doing a face reading, for instance, one thing you might do is look for whatever feature is largest or smallest on their face, because that gives you some important information about their inner nature. You'd need to learn to read what the meaning of it is, but it's not something where you're micro-analyzing every single little detail of their face. That you can tell within the first few moments of meeting someone how to create rapport with them, how to speak in a way that they can hear and understand you, how to make them comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were talking about how this map has been laid out for thousands of years, that it's pretty detailed. When you've, I guess, done readings, is that a good way that I could put this?
Yeah, that's one way to put it, sure.
Okay, sure. If you have another way that you prefer to use, please let me know. But generally when people think about astrology, which this really isn't, that's what they think of. Well, what's my reading? Do they find that you're pretty accurate with what happens here?
Well, often people say to me, "Oh, come on, you must have bugged my house. You couldn't possibly know this. You must have been spying on me for the last 20 years." So yes, that's
by now they should be used to it with the NSA and also.
Yeah, yeah, maybe
Google's watching you.
Yeah, so it is. I mean, I always tell people that I'm probably one of the more skeptical people they'll ever meet. I'm very left-brained. One of the reasons I believe in this so much is that it's been researched and proven over the millennia. It's not something that somebody just kind of came up with in 1959, that there's been a lot of research by many different people with subjects, almost like controlled studies over the years. But another reason why I have such respect for it is that I have so many years of experience of seeing that it just works. And, you can be as skeptical as you want to be. I always tell people, don't believe a word I say. Go and put this into use in your everyday life, and that's how it will be proven to you. Mm-hmm. That every day in readings or in workshops with people where, I have people leaping to their feet saying, this should be taught in the schools. If only I'd known this when I was raising my children or when I was starting out in life, it would have been such a huge help. So this is really a map of who you are inside. That's how I often describe it to people, where it can help you navigate your life. It's not that you have a destiny carved in stone. It's not that something is, absolutely going to happen, because the foundation of Chinese medicine is that everything's always changing. Mm-hmm. And so, who you have dinner with tonight can make a comment that can change your life forever. Right. It's not that you're doomed to have this or that experience. It's much deeper than that.
Earlier in the year of last year, we had a gentleman on the program that, using a deck of cards, that he could kind of foretell a future, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And it was based on numerology through the cards. And it was interesting because he was saying much the same way that, your destiny really isn't carved in stone, and this is a way that you can map it out so that you could see that when this particular relationship maybe comes along for you, and we're not talking loving relationships, I talk about relationship just with people in general, you'll decide through this whether that's something you want to further explore or you should veer away from and find something else. Reason being, as we were talking about earlier in the program, a lot of people are trying to navigate through life. They want it to really be easy. They want to know that they can learn and grow. And most importantly, they want to know that there's a sense of fulfillment and long-living happiness that goes along with it. Mm-hmm. And we live in a world of uncertainty, or so it seems, where we find ourselves getting in our own way quite a bit, finding ourselves stuck and yearning for that, how come I can't have the kind of life that person over there has? And so they stumble, they fall, and they try to figure out, what do I do next? I can see how this can kind of help guide them, but that wouldn't prevent you from enjoying the adventures that happen along the way.
Well, yeah, and I was working with someone yesterday who said something that felt quite profound to me. She said, this is really giving me meaning about my suffering. In other words, the things that we struggle with, that we try to deal with, that don't make sense to us, that we blame ourselves for, when we learn the meaning underneath, it relieves us of the self-blame, of the angst about it, when we understand the greater meanings. We all have patterns of ways that we will tend to create problems for ourselves unconsciously without even understanding that we're doing it. And when you learn this stuff, you suddenly kind of shed light on that. You go, oh my God, no wonder that happened, or no, there I go again, and you can manage your life in a whole new way.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you've been doing this easily for more than 30 years, would you say that life was meant to be easy?
Well, of course. The thing is that we're the ones who make it hard, often through misunderstanding the reasons for why we're going through what we're going through. Mm-hmm. You know, the thing is that I believe it's almost like we sign a contract before we're born about what kind of lessons we're signing up for this time around, mm-hmm. what kind of things we need to work on and learn and deal with to take us to the next level in our personal evolution. And that includes, you know, probably even signing up for the kind of family we're born into, the parents that we'll have. It's all designed to help us, and if we can understand the meaning inside those lessons, then it becomes less of a struggle. Then you don't kind of grope in the dark trying to figure out, why is this happening?
You know, I always find that so fascinating when I hear that from people, that you kind of signed up to be in the family that you were born into. You made that choice. You know, that you went into this life, you made that choice on a spiritual or soul level to come into this world to experience the things, to learn the lessons that you came here to learn. And some people might be left scratching their head thinking, well, geez, I don't know that I, signed up for all the suffering that I seem to be feeling. And
believe me, I am not one who's kind of airy-fairy here and saying, oh, well, but you asked for this. That's not what this is about. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a lot of questions for the woman upstairs once this life is over about why people have to suffer the way that they do. I don't believe anybody can tell you why that is. And if anyone is proclaiming that they know all the secrets of life and why someone has to suffer, I would thank them and turn and walk in the other direction. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of this that's a mystery. But what I can say is that every single time without fail, when I work with someone and we're looking at the issues and the problems and their life history and the challenges, I can see so crystal clear the patterns in this journey and why things have unfolded the way that they have and why they've responded to things the way that we have. We're all wired in certain ways that incline us to respond to our life experiences in certain ways. And sometimes that is good and sometimes not so good. You know, every human characteristic comes as a package deal. In other words, it gives you many strengths and benefits, but there's downsides as well. Mm-hmm. And so if part of our wiring is to respond to an experience with fear, then that can take us down a road of fear that compounds and exacerbates things. And after doing that for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, we've kind of created a rut that we're in where then we're always responding and making choices out of fear that doesn't always serve us well.
Mm. And it's certainly not a very fun place to live in, but usually, as you say, if you can step aside, you can really take a good, I suppose, wise look at your experience, that you can realize, you know, not only did I grow, but I'm really thankful that something like that happened. And you hear that a lot in people, especially when they move through adversity, you know, to the point where they realize the gift that was there the whole time. And it's an interesting perspective to have, to realize, you know, when things just suck, you know, that it's really good, you know, if you could really see that. And I remember many years ago as I started being able to discipline myself to have that approach, that life did get easier and you realized reality was really kinder than I thought it was.
Yes. And it's very true. You make a very good point that, you know, in life, at any particular time, we only have a very tiny little keyhole view of what's really going on. And if you look back in your life, those times that were so awful or hard, now you have the bigger picture about what resulted from that. And I often, when I teach workshops, you know, I remind people, you know, when you were 16 and there was that boy or that girl that you knew you would just die if you didn't marry them, that your life would be over if you didn't marry them, and they never even asked you out and you were devastated, and now when you look back, you thank God because they're in prison that you never dated them. You understand that we have such a limited understanding, and what we think we want and what we try so hard to get often isn't the right thing for us at all.
Now, how do you see, let's go ahead and get kind of into the nitty-gritty here, and that is for 2015. First of all, from your perspective, a lot of people are saying, this is what I believe the predictions of this year is, but I think we get tired of, the Middle East is going to be like this, and our government's going to do that, and the economy is going to do this. What about 2015 that you could say that seems more personal, that we should think about in our worlds and what's happening in front of us?
Well, and you make a very good point that, the whole purpose of this work is to help someone with their own unique life. Mm-hmm. And so the patterns in your birthday, one of the things they show us is how you are moving through the cycles of time, that based on when you were born, every year has kind of a different theme for you. It will tend to bring you certain kinds of experiences and lay out a certain path for you. And if you know the theme of the year, then you can make the most progress. You can kind of go with the flow rather than struggling to swim upstream. So for each person, when we look at your birthday, we can see what the theme of 2015 is. In fact, on my website, there's a little free thing there under the newsletter link. If people want to go to jeanhainer.com and click on the newsletter link, they can see that I posted little blurbs about predictions for what their specific year will be like in 2015, and that's all for free, so if they'd like to do that. But if you want to share with me your birthday, I can go into more detail if you'd like, just as an example.
You see, people, that's how you get somebody to do something for you. You get them to ask you if it's okay if they can do it. I love being a radio host. So my birthday is September 22nd, 1964.
Okay. Oh, and so this is why I'm not surprised that you're on the radio. There's actually, even before we get into what 2015 is about for you, just in terms of your overall personality, there's a pattern here that has to do with ending up in the spotlight, with being incredibly good at communications, with being very charming, very gracious, excellent sense of humor. It's just a kind of a natural thing that you might end up kind of being in the media, being in communications. That's a natural talent of yours.
And if I may, just for the listeners, as I grew up, as I was a little kid, I was a little chatterbox. I got in trouble a lot in school, believe me. As I was sharing with a guest not too long ago, did you know the name of your principal? Because I also knew his extended family, so...
Oh, no.
But the funny thing was it got to a point when I got into the world of work as an adult that was still a problem. And I really easily could have become bitter, but I realized I'm in manufacturing. That's where you work with your hands and you keep your mouth shut. And I couldn't do that too often, or I learned to try. But anyway, point being is I moved from that into realms where I realized, well, this is an industry where you need to speak. You need to talk to people so it's okay and the hands stop, actually. And I realized, no, there wasn't anything wrong with me. It's just where I was putting myself.
And
I think a lot of people really sell themselves short where they don't really say, what is that special thing I was born with? For me, it was chattering, but then I also learned to communicate, to talk. That means to listen to other people, and therefore I began to develop what I felt was my natural talent. So anyway.
And you're absolutely right, and that's a beautiful example of it's how we're trying to find our way through life. We try something, we become an accountant because our father was an accountant or whatever that was. Mm-hmm. And if you have a map of who you are, it can help you more quickly find the careers that are a good fit for you. Mm-hmm. Many people aren't as lucky as you to have that thought process to go, well, gee, this is what I'm really good at and love to do. Why don't I find a career that lets me do that in healthy ways? Mm-hmm. That was excellent. So, and it's not the only thing that you could do, but it's definitely something that is a natural talent of yours. So we see that. When I look at 2015 is like for you, this is actually the second year of a whole new major era in your life. When you think back to 2014, anyway, was it kind of a slow year, or did you feel a little bit more like staying home, or you didn't feel like you were making as much progress as you had?
I suppose that there were thoughts about that, like, why aren't things better than they are? Why am I making these choices knowing that they just, A, aren't going to work out, and the second thing, I'm not going to feel very happy that I've made that choice. It was almost like I knew the choices I was making, they would be satisfactory for, let's say, helping me out in a particular way, but for the most part, I just knew they would be unfulfilling and they'd be very short term anyway, which they were.
Oh, how interesting. Yeah. So. Okay. So that's actually part of what the design of last year was like for you. You're now much more into the influence of 2015, and this is a very different kind of year. It's kind of a 2-year stage, so this is the second stage of this. Last year was more about allowing yourself to kind of dream and float and get a sense of where you'd like to go from here, but not really launch into action about it. This year is about building the foundation to launch from. And it's an excellent year to connect with people. It's a time of networking or being in touch with family. And the thing is that life will provide you those opportunities. It's not that you have to go out and make it happen. These are natural cycles that are based on the understanding of the cycles of nature. So just like in the fall when the leaves fall off the trees, we're not surprised by that. We also don't have to go out and pick them off the trees. They just do it. And in the spring, they'll start to grow again. So for you, this year is about the planning, the getting your ducks in a row, but also very much about receptivity, about helpers showing up in your life, about people showing up to support you, to help you move to the next stage of wherever it is that you want to go.
And I like that you said the idea is that you flow, you see the opportunities, you don't run out there, and try to snatch them or try to, I guess, influence the behavior of whatever it is that you want to move. And I find that fascinating because it seems that when it comes to taking, let's say, a seminar or workshop and a goal setting, that it seems, and I believe I've interviewed a lot of these people that write books like this and conduct these seminars about achieving goals, is that somehow you have to go out and make something happen to achieve the goal. And I can tell you, having a laid-back attitude and allowing the things to come to you actually works. That sometimes it may seem that it's a little bit longer, but it's certainly no less fulfilling than going out there and grinding it out, and finally you get the goal and you just wonder, well, why did I want that in the first place? It just, you don't feel very fulfilled by it.
Yes, and this has a lot to do with how we're programmed by our culture, which is very much a do, go culture, that we're not valued unless we're going out there and setting goals and achieving them and going for it, and that is actually a very shallow view of what's really going on, that there's a stage in the growth of anything, whether it's your life or a goal or where you're supposed to go from here. There's a stage that is about being, not doing. And the being stage is about just sitting with it and going deeper into it and trusting the process that things will naturally come to you. The more that you're in balance, and all of this work that I do is based on this beautiful Chinese medicine understanding that it's really about the body being in balance, the spirit being in balance, that if you're in balance and centered, then life just unfolds for you. It's not about struggle and stress and trying to figure things out. That the more you can be and not do, the more you can trust that who you are is fine, then things will just happen for you. The more you observe what's coming. So for you this year to observe what helpers show up, what offers of support or assistance or advice or help that you get, and saying yes to those more often than not, about not staying isolated this year is very good for you.
Now, I know our producer was excited about bringing this together, so why don't we go ahead and work on that one? And that birthday is 12/2/1968.
Okay, 12/2/68. Oh, wow. So very different personality type, but you guys are great together. So is this Joy? This is a woman?
Right.
Okay. So this is total Earth Mama. And what this means is she's great for you in many ways, but this is someone whose whole heart just shows up in huge desire to help people. Brilliant at creating community, at bringing people together, which is why this radio show exists, but a wonderful resource for people. It is all about teaching and supporting and helping people become the best that they can be. I mean, this is a very strong pattern here. And when I say mama, it doesn't really have anything to do with whether or not the person is actually a mother. It is the essence of what Mother Nature is about, which is a very nurturing presence, always wanting to help make things better. You know, this mother energy is somebody that you can lean on, who will always show up for you.
Okay. So things look pretty good for her in 2015, and really that's not the perspective that we're taking, but...
Well, that was the first thing I had to say. So in
Okay.
terms of looking at 2015 for her now, this specific year is actually quite a beneficial one. This is the second stage, a second year in a 2-year cycle that has to do with what I call reaping rewards. Last year was the first year of it, and it has to do with life rewarding you. Last year would have been a time often when people are in this stage where they graduate or retire or get a promotion or an inheritance, or in some way they get more respect and recognition from the outside world. This year, 2015, is a stage when she's meant to reward herself. Mm-hmm. And one thing that means is really letting soak in her achievements, a genuine sense of pride in everything that she's learned and accomplished, not in an egotistical way, but in a very sincere way. And also to make sure that she doesn't pinch pennies too much, that she doesn't scrimp too much or deprive herself, that this is a year to celebrate life, whether it's going on some big vacation or a lovely long weekend or buying a little gift or putting flowers on the table for dinner. It's about experiencing the pleasure and the beauty of the life that she's created for herself up till now.
Mm-hmm. You know, and people don't tend to really do that for themselves.
No.
You know, they'll work hard and they'll amass whatever it is they're doing, and they don't really do the simple things to realize this is why I was doing this.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because coming back to the patterns of your personality, one thing that you're very, very good at is this theme of beauty, of noticing the little details, the little nuances about things, of having a great desire to create and experience beauty. That happens in terms of your creating beautiful experiences for people, whether it's on the radio or in personal life, but also the need to have a beautiful life and to watch out, in your case, for not depriving yourself of, and so that comment that you made might just be a little observation also about how the two directions your mind can tend to go. There's always a range with these things, two extremes, and so one extreme would be deprivation and the other extreme would be overdoing the beauty, kind of, you know, always having to have the best of the best of the best and the bank account be damned.
I don't think I would take it that far.
No, I don't think you would either.
Now, give us an idea. I know people who listen to programs like this, especially when it comes to what we're talking about here, do you have an inspiring story of someone that you actually worked with where you just seen a profound change in what they decided to do?
Oh, interesting. Well, okay, one comes to mind about a man I did a reading for a while back who had one very strong theme to his nature. You know, every reading is different, and some people are a very kind of complex tapestry of many different qualities, and my job is to see how that all weaves together. And other people have such a single strong theme running through their personality and their entire life experience, and he kind of fell into that latter category. And the theme that he carried in his personality is what I call the archetype of the artist, that he was someone who was highly creative, deeply intuitive, who didn't kind of click into the standard values of our culture, which are all about, you know, whoever dies with the most toys wins, you know, whoever makes the most money, that people should be, you know, on that kind of treadmill of work, and earn the most and look the best to everyone else. He really didn't value that. He valued a quiet life where he could let his creative juices flow. He was quite a bit of a nonconformist, and he had an enormous emotional depth, which was what allowed him actually to be such a brilliant artist. People like this often crave freedom. They tend to live unusual lives. But his struggle was he felt like such an outsider. He felt like something must be terribly wrong with him that he couldn't kind of up to the normal standard. He had a brother who was very successful. He was an entrepreneur, had a big flashy car and a big house, and And he thought, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm supposed to be like my brother. Why can't I do that? And so I was just reflecting back to him what his pattern showed about why he wasn't meant to do that, about why actually everything that he was yearning for and feeling compelled to do was a fit for him. It actually was right for him. And after I finished talking and I paused to kind of let him respond, there was a very long moment of silence that went on and on and on. And then I suddenly started getting worried that maybe he didn't understand. And then he said, oh, so you mean I'll always be this way? And I thought, oh gosh, maybe he thinks this is like a prison he'd never escape. Maybe he thinks that this is a bad thing. And then he let out this huge sigh and gave a big smile, and he said, that's such a relief. You mean I'm supposed to be like this? And he got it. That was exactly it. This is often the big hump that we need to get over in life, that there's really nothing wrong with us aside from the fact that we think there's something wrong with us. That the more you can align yourself with your inner design, with who you're meant to be, the more you feel comfortable in your own skin, the more you can love yourself and then be available to love other people. The most common comment I get at the end of a session with somebody is often, this is the first time in my life I felt truly seen. Mm-hmm. And that to me is the highest compliment.
It's also amazing, too, when you consider, for instance, as we've been producing this program going on 11 years now, is that people, by the time they reach midlife, some sooner than others, but generally by midlife, they call it a crisis, but I think what they're doing is really shaking off all these things they thought they were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. They were getting rid of all the things people told them they were supposed to be, that sort of a thing, and realizing there's this voice now that it was whispering to me before, but now it's screaming, don't you think it's about time for you to start doing things that are right for you? And so you start seeing a lot of people in spiritual development workshops or goal-setting classes, and it goes on, really trying to archaeologically dig to find out who this authentic person all these gurus are promising them they're going to find. Yeah. And the fact is, you don't need those people to figure this out. If you really look back on your life, really sit down. It could take a day or a weekend, whatever it is for you. And if you really could get quiet and reflect on the times that made you happiest about who you were and what you were doing, it will reveal to you, literally on a billboard, what that is. And wouldn't you agree with something like that?
Well, I have a couple responses to that. The first one is that basically all of us are kind of like goldfish in a goldfish bowl, in that the goldfish never sees the water that it's swimming in. And so it's very hard for most of us to be able to sit down and really see the water that we've been swimming in, the life that we've created, the patterns of belief and thought and behavior that we tend to get locked into. So certainly, absolutely, we can get insight, and that can help us make decisions. But often you need to be able to have someone point out the water you're swimming in first.
But and if you're swimming in Lake Erie, you're not doing too well, are you?
Yeah, well, we all do that to one degree or another, and part of our life journey is becoming conscious of those patterns and being able to step out of them. But there are also larger cycles in life, aside from just the individual years. And what happens for people as they get into their 50s, for instance, is that they move into a phase of time where they feel absolutely compelled to look at how life isn't a fit, what they haven't yet received, they've been really needing, what they need in order to feel fulfilled in life, and then they can no longer ignore that. They feel compelled to make corrections. And so, for instance, in the 50s, this is often for women when they look at how they've been overgiving to everyone in their lives, and they start to focus more on excellent self-care to bring that into balance. For men, often, it's that they wake up as they enter their 50s and see how they've been living their life at the office, and they don't have enough genuine friendships, or that their work isn't as fulfilling as they wanted it to be. So they may start their own business or start a second family or reach out to their community more. That kind of self-correction in some theme happens in every major decade of every phase of our life. The 60s brings another theme. And so in my book, Your Hidden Symmetry, I not only cover the personality traits aligned with your birthday, but the individual cycles of the years and then the larger cycles of the decades and what those meanings are.
Fascinating stuff. It's been a pleasure to have you on the program. How can people find out how to get your book?
Yeah, that'd be great. So I would invite them to visit my website, which is jeanhainer.com. And there's free information there as well as information about all the books and my blog and workshops and easy one-stop shopping.
Sounds good. Jean, thank you again for being on the program today. It's good to discover this will probably be an exciting year.
There you go. Thanks a lot.
You bet. We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for tuning in. Be sure to visit us at beyond50radio.com. We'll have links there for you to find out more about the wisdom of your face. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.